Strong Roots Farm. Today we're going to go over step 2 of what I think you need to know before you start farming or homesteading or whatever you're doing. You have to plan ahead to do this correctly. Okay, so I'm going to go over a few things here that I think that are very important that you plan. You need to have, in engineering we have the 1,000-foot view, the 10,000-foot view, and the 100,000-foot view, or whatever you would say, but you need to have a big picture, what you're going to do year 1, year 3, kind of think broad dreams. You can write those things down, but really we're going to plan about this season. So I'm not going to go into long-term dreams and those kind of things about what you want to go, but have those in the back of your mind because it'll tell you where you should go this year in order to accomplish that in 3 to 5 years. So as we set a plan, here's some things we should think about. First thing I think you should plan is sales. And so I've told you about the 3 steps. If you haven't watched the step 1 video, you need to go back and do that. But we're really looking at a home gardener as level 1, and level 2 kind of going up as more homesteading, and then level 3 is market garden. Somebody's trying to make a living off of this. Homesteaders can have a few customers, but if you're still have a day job, or maybe one of you work in your household, you're kind of at that level. So there's different levels of how you would think about this, but sales, you need to think about it. Obviously, the home grower who's not selling doesn't need to think about sales. But if you are a market gardener, you're looking to make a living at this, you're looking to make sales, even homesteading, if you're looking to say, hey, I want to raise extra in order to have sales, you need to think about sales. And it's mainly, where are you going to sell at? What are you going to grow? And we talked a little bit about this in educating yourself when we talked about educating your market. So it's more about thinking about how you're going to sell it. Are you going to box it? Are you going to bag it? Are you going to do deliveries? Are you going to have pickup? One sale, if you go back and watch my prior videos, one way we sold that was very successful for us was a U-Pick program. So just like a CSA membership, we collected our money up front, and then people came and picked. And this was very beneficial for us because in market gardening, intensive gardening, to sell and make money, 50% of your labor cost is in harvesting. So I took that out. So they came and harvested their own stuff. I didn't have to harvest, I didn't have to wash, I didn't have to pack. Second thing you need to plan for is your layout. So you need to think about which way the sun is coming in. I try to orient everything towards the south. So as the winter comes along, after summer's come, the sun will begin to fall more towards the south. I want those rays. And so it's always warmer facing south. If you have a greenhouse that's in a hillside, you want it facing south. So I look at that. Now, it does not matter, and I've done tests on rows that run north-south or rows that run east-west, but you do need to think about shade. So if you have trees that are on the south side of your property and it's going to block the sun late fall, that's something you need to think about. This layout, it needs to be drawn. Okay, you need to have a drawing or a plan at least in action ahead of time. Home growers, not so much. Just think about the sun and kind of say, okay, I'm going to have 3 raised beds. Let's put them here. All you got to think about is the sun. For me, though, I did a complete drawing. And so I used Google SketchUp. It's a program that we use at work. It is free. You can download it from Google. And we do floor plans with it and different things. But I did my entire drawing on my farm, and I will show that here at the end of this little clip. The picture that I did and drew, it took me about 2 hours. So it's an easy program to use. You can go into LinkedIn Learning if you have LinkedIn, and you can sign in and watch some videos and training on how to do that as well. There's training videos on there. So draw it out, get a piece of paper, get some grid paper, figure out your measurements, make sure you're going to have the right shading and stay away from things. These beds here, you can grow in midsummer, but they're going to be obsolete in early spring or fall because of the trees. Whatever it would be, plan your layout, draw it out, figure it out. And in that, you need to think a lot about the lean stuff that the book talked about, Ben Hartman's book talked about in step 1, which is how many steps, the spaghetti diagram, how far are you walking? Think about all that. As a market gardener, those steps are costing you money. So think about how far you're going to be from everything as well. The other thing you need to plan for is water. So I'm not talking about how water flows in the land. That's kind of in your layout. We talked about that. But how are you going to water? Are you going to water by hand? Are you going to water overhead? Are you going to use drip? I saw a thing this weekend where JM48 called it drip irritation. He doesn't like drip. He likes overhead. I like drip. It's a big proponent for me. I like putting it under the fabric, and I recommend that you grow a lot of stuff in fabric the first year. I think drip irrigation does very well for this. It is a hassle. There are some hassles with it that overhead does not have, but there is some benefits to it. You only need 10 psi. You don't need to have, 70 or 80 psi like some of the overhead sprinklers do. So there's something to think about there. The other thing about water that most people don't think about is the chlorination. So I live at a lake community. The water is awesome here. So I could probably use the water out of the tap and be just fine. It's really pure. It's really good here at the lake. But I will tell you that rainwater, there's nothing better than rainwater. Okay, so I did a test, and I've seen significant differences in plant growth by speed and how large the fruit got by using chlorinated water from a tap or a pumped water from a rain catchment system. The problem with the rain catchment system is that you kind of have to be there to turn it on and turn it off unless you really know your electronics and you can really set up a good computer program. If you're using a tap, you can turn it on. Home Depot has programmable water programmers, and you can just set your timers, and it's easy to go. But think about how you're going to water. You need a plan for that. Plan ahead. Before you put seeds in the ground, you need to know how you're going to water them. And I'm telling you, if you're going to water them by hand, unless you're a home gardener, you're going to fail in some form or fashion. You're either going to water too much or too little, or you're not going to be there at the right time, or you're going to want to go away from the weekend, and it's going to impact your life, which is then going to frustrate you, and the garden is then going to become a hassle in life. If you can plant, program, and walk away, and then just come back to harvest, that's the way to go. The other thing you need to plan is your seed selection. So things come at certain times, but you can pretty much generally order from Johnny's and it'll be at your house in a week or two, or most seed companies. So you don't have to worry a ton about this. You don't have to be 6 months ahead of this. I already have my seed. I seeded my first tray tonight, but I have months before I have to seed some of the seeds that I already have. So you need to have a dry place to store them if you're going to do that. Keep that in mind, but you need to plan out your seeds. So I'll show a picture here. You just saw was my seed list of seeds, and it doesn't even have them all in there because I've added some, so I need to update that. But I like to keep a record of my seeds alphabetized, and I have some key things. Am I going to direct seed? Am I going to transplant? Can they go either way? Days to maturity, germination temperatures. I just make a spreadsheet of that. I like to have that spreadsheet where I don't have to go look for the seed packet and read on it. I don't have to go back into my catalog. I just, boom, it's right there on my spreadsheet. And I have a plan for that. So I'll also show you my plan layout for my timeline here in a second. So I take my seed spreadsheet and I make a plan for what each row is going to grow based off of those date to maturities. And I give myself an extra week. Sometimes you can let stuff go a little longer, or you want to have that week flexibility, but ideally you're cropping out and reseeding the same day. But have a plan. Have a plan for how you're going to do that. The plan, it needs to be flexible. You need to be able to change it throughout the season based on weather, based on problems, but you got to have a plan for your seeding. So right here is my calendar, and you'll see as you look at it, one thing I want to note, I do 2 weeks. So I'll do March 1st, March 15th, April 1st, April 15th. I break it down in those 2-week sections. Some people do it weekly. If you're a market gardener and you're doing high volumes, I recommend you do it weekly. If you're a home gardener, you can do it like I did it, or even take just a normal calendar and write it on there what you're thinking and make notes on the calendar. That's what JM48 does. He uses a normal calendar and he writes stuff out. That's a good way. I like spreadsheets. It's quick for me. I can update it, I can change it, and then I can save it year after year and kind of go back and look and see what I did. So here's the picture. All right, so you saw that, and you'll see there kind of my schedule for things. That lets me know which rows I'm going to direct seed, so I need to stale seed bed those, or which row I'm going to use tarps on or fabric on. It also lets me know my crop that's going in. Is it going to be a heavy feeder? Do I need to add different amenities? Now, this is year 1 for me at this piece of land, so it's pretty much going to be the same across the board. I will add amenities to pretty much every row because it's brand new soil. But if you've done this for years, you want to know what heavy feeders are and what crop rotations are, and think about, I don't want to plant a heavy feeder followed by a heavy feeder. I want to rotate things in and out. And there's methods of doing that. You can look at all those in those books that I recommended in step 1. But you want to think about that and plan that out. And that's why I have this schedule. I also want to think about the temperatures, average almanac temperatures for those times that I'm going to plant, and that'll help me to kind of make that schedule and do the correct rotation and know those things. The last thing is you kind of want to have a rotational plan. So as you're making that bed schedule out like you saw I did, you need to have a rotational plan. Okay, if you harvest Salanova this week and you harvest all of it, you will not have Salanova next week. Now you'll have it in 2, maybe 3 weeks again, because it's cut and come again. Same thing with direct seeded salad mixes. So if you're able to sell 200 pounds a week, you don't want to plant just one 25-foot bed. You need to have them in succession. You can actually plant early season salad mixes, multiple beds, and harvest one this week and then wait till the next week to harvest the next. This is mostly market gardener strategy. Home gardeners, you don't need to worry about it. Get them out early, keep them flowing, you're good to go. There's not a lot there. You can make mistakes. The mistake level for a home gardener, it's much more forgiving when you're not relying on this for your income, and you don't have the ability to fail at customer satisfaction. If you're going all in market gardening, you really need to do this. You really need to have a good plan. To fail to plan is to plan to fail. We've heard that before. You really got to have that laid out. Last thing that I have on my list here for planning is to kind of standardize things. Once again, my lean background, you should have standard size bins, standard size, we want standardized rows, we want standardized fabrics. And so we've talked about, I like 25-foot rows because of my market and the growth that I need to have. If I had 50-foot beds, I would only be seeding out 25 feet anyways. So I want to have full beds that I can crop out at the same time. So I'm sticking with 25. All of this material that you're going to buy comes in that 25-foot increment. So most of it's in the 100-foot increment, but all of your beds, I've talked about, it doesn't matter how long they are, but they really should be in 25s, 50s, or 100s. One of those three, depending on how much you want to grow. So as you're watching my videos and you're seeing how I'm growing things, just know most of mine are 25. I will have a greenhouse that will have a different length of time, based off how big or length of bed, based off of how big I can make my greenhouse. But other than that, most of my stuff is going to be 25 foot so that all my fabrics are cut to 25 foot. I can move those fabrics to any rows. All my drip lines are cut at 25 foot. I can move those to any row. All that stuff is standard. My sprinkler heads would all be set if I was doing overhead to 25-foot systems, and I could lay them down. It doesn't matter what distance you pick, but it does matter that you standardize it. It needs to be the same. You need to think about that. Plan ahead for that. Last thing that you need to do with your plan is stick to it. It is an evolving thing. It is something that will change over time. It cannot change monthly though. Make a plan, do your best that you can within that plan, but stick to it. At the end of the plan, do an after action review, that AAR military thing. Go back and say, this is what we did. Take notes throughout your plan. This is where we failed. This is how we want to change our plan next year. You can do it quarterly. So as you have an early spring season and you're cropping out everything, say, this is what I want to change next time. You can do that in this year. You really can't do it monthly though. If you allow your brain to make changes to your plan monthly, your plan will be so far out of proportion from where it started, you won't even know. You won't gain any knowledge from the mistakes. You're not going to be able to calculate those out. You don't know what worked and what didn't work. So make a plan. I encourage you the first year, don't change it. Just stick to it the whole year. Now, if you know, hey, I made a huge mistake in the spring, I got to fix this in the fall for whatever crop, spinach per se, go ahead and make the change, but don't change the plan completely. Stick to your plan. Educate yourself first. That was step one. Step two, make the plan and stick to it. It's how you do that after action review, how you do that evaluation of your plan. And I would record time, wasted time for fighting fires. So if you're constantly saying, okay, today, this week, I need to accomplish these things to make my plan happen, but I find myself being drug away to do this and this and this, that's called fighting fires. You're chasing problems rather than preemptively setting those things in motion. Okay, so if you're fighting fires constantly, your plan was not adequate. You need to take note of that and plan ahead next year to fix those problems.
As always, thanks for watching. Tell your mama and them Subscribe and comment to continue with us on this journey. And don't forget to check out Noah Smith at noahsmithmusic.com.